Hey my little dee-dee-doos, it's Kai here, and it's back to school season. So I know all the beauty gurus and the cool YouTube kids did their back to school videos last month, but last month it was still summer, and I was huddled by my computer instead of buying school supplies. So this is my video. Y'all know everyone loves subs, right? Well, it depends on the subs. You could have a sub that everyone loves and is just the best, most kind and caring person ever. Or you could have the type of subs that are just downright odd. If you haven't guessed, I'm talking about the second type, and substitute teachers. For our first story, we're going backtrack to elementary school and talk about a substitute teacher I had for the majority of those years on and off. For the sake of this video, let's call her by the adoring nickname my peers and I gave her, Miss Booger. So just a little backstory on Miss Booger. She had a son, let's call him Jay. So in high school, Jay dated my older sister, but Jay proceeded to break up with my older sister because she could ride a bike faster than he could. But by the time Jay broke up with my older sister, Miss Booger kinda started semi-worshipping my older sister and thought if she was nice to then third grade me, that when my older sister came back from college, she and Jay would date again. Okay, so now this story gets interesting. Miss Booger did not like being a substitute teacher at all, but she did it. So whenever lunch came around, she would hand out random recess detentions to kids. Since Miss Booger was being nice to me, I was basically a get out of recess detention free card if you sat at my table. So by third or fourth grade, I had this figured out. So I only filled my table with my friends and allies on the day Miss Booger was there, and kids would offer me favors and yummy cookies in exchange for sitting at my table. Okay, for our next story, we're gonna jump into middle school with a sub we're going to call Miss Jones. So Miss Jones was one of the more elderly subs that circulated around the middle school. So one day in sixth grade, she was being the supervisor for my study period. So there's this one kid in the back of the class during this period. Let's call him Emmanuel. So Emmanuel had finished his math homework and was checking it on a calculator, which we were allowed to do. Miss Jones mistook his calculator for a phone. Since phones were prohibited, she could declare, "Kid, bring that phone up to the front of class." Emmanuel complied, and midway to the front of the class, he said, "This is a calculator, ma'am." To this, Miss Jones responded, "Stop sass, me boy, and bring up that phone." So in short, for the rest of the period, Emmanuel and Miss Jones continued to contradict each other. The next day, Emmanuel told her normal supervisor what happened, and Miss Jones was never our sub again. So for the third story, we're going to backtrack to Halloween of my sixth grade year. So it was the day before Halloween, and the school allowed us to wear costumes to school. So, in science class, we had a sub, and he looked out on the sea of students in costumes, and he didn't know how to be a cool teacher in this situation. So, he looked down and discovered he was wearing a plaid shirt. So, he made a desperate decision to try and convince the class he was a lumberjack. Sixth grade me felt really sorry for the sub because he tried so hard and it ended up him just pleading us to believe he was a lumberjack. So for our next story, we're going to backtrack to elementary school. To be more specific, third grade. So one day during math class, we were handed a math sheet by a substitute teacher who was there for the day. I'm running out of generic names. Let's call her Miss Kapow. So Miss Kapow handed us out this worksheet. Then she noticed there was no answer key for us to check our answers on, and she had to make one. So she did. And when the first kid was done, let's call him Rene, he went up to Miss Kapow to see the answers. So Miss Kapow gave the answers to Rene. And as Rene was checking his answers, he came to a problem. What is 2 times 3? Rene looked down at the answer sheet to see that the answer was 5. Rene looked up at Miss Kapow and blurted out, "Miss Kapow, isn't 2 times 3 6? At that very moment, Miss Kapow's face turned bright tomato red, and said, "Yes, I have gone through 3rd grade. I know this is the right answer." Then Rene started firing back why he knew 2 times 3 was 6 instead of 5 and got sent to the principal's office for talking back to the teacher. But 5 minutes later, the principal and Rene appeared in the doorway. The principal walked to the front of the class, said, "Kids, Miss Kapow and I need to have a meeting. You will have a different sub for the rest of the day." So Miss Kapow walked out of the room with the principal, and another sub walked in, and Miss Kapow was never our sub again. So now we're going to skip forward to 8th grade. So let's call this sub Miss Orsi. Miss Orsi was a new sub, and it was the end of the year, so she was basically sent in to make sure our last period Spanish class didn't start reenacting the Hunger Games. But our Spanish class teacher had been MIA for the last week and decided to make this poor sub give us a project. Since it was 2 days to the last day of school, we all knew this would not be graded and was just busy work. But I, unlike the other 99% of our class, decided to do the project because I had nothing better to do. So the rest of my class decided to prey on this baby chicken of a sub. First, they told her to play the first non-appropriate Spanish song they found on a Google search and told her our teacher always played it. Next, they decided to try to ditch by saying another teacher wanted them to retake a test in their classroom. After that failed, they tried to get out of class by pretending to be sick, saying they would do their work in the library, and my personal all-time favorite, they told her that they needed to go to the bathroom, then just didn't return. Sub surprisingly remained calm and nice through all of this and started playing her favorite Spanish music. But at the end of the class, 2 guys decided they had nothing better to do than trash the classroom. After that, the sub lost it and started barking orders like a military officer, at one point called us little monsters. So in short, my Spanish class broke a sub. Okay, so this is the end of the video. If you are or know a substitute teacher, thank them for all they go through. And as always, like and subscribe.